In this video, we're going to talk all about failure and my path to success. I'm going to share exactly how much I made across each one of my projects, each one of my companies, whether it was a success or a failure, and bring you from the very first time I started a company at 21 to today, I'm 36 and I've started a lot of companies. So let's go. Most people today only talk about their big wins, their big successes, and that's not an accurate lens into what it looks like to go from starting out to a success story. And so in this video, I'm actually going to take you through all of my failures. I'm going to share exactly how much money I was making during each of them, and then all the way through the path to what ended up becoming my successes. So here we go. Let's dive in. Let's start at the very beginning. I was 20 years old, waiting tables in Los Angeles. I was making, must have been about $8.50 an hour plus tips, learning how to handle people, learning how to sell stuff to people, learning how to please people and just manage personalities. I learned so many skills actually during that time that have helped me as an entrepreneur. But that was when I started dreaming. I started dreaming about starting a company. And that first company that I started dreaming about ended up being my first failure. It was called Odessa Creatives. And the idea was that essentially I wanted to create what Squarespace is today. It was like I wanted to create template websites that people could design themselves without having to know code. And I thought it'd be great because I went to art school and I thought artists could use this. You know, you don't want to have to learn how to code, blah, blah, blah. So that was my first idea. I got super excited about it. I started working on it and I made exactly $0 from this project. I started going out there. I started trying to sell it. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't really know how to build it. I didn't know how to sell it. I didn't know where to sell it. And so I ended up bailing on this idea before it really went too far. So Odessa Creatives, that was my first fun failure. My next failure was called Tell It in 10. It was this consumer photo sharing app. And I actually got further along with this. We built the product, we launched the product. I had a launch party, and I ended up losing $25,000 with this project because I actually had invested my own money. And by my own money, meaning I actually didn't have any money to invest, but I opened up credit cards and racked up $25,000 worth of credit card debt. I don't recommend doing that, but that's what I did. The interesting thing about Tell It in 10, while it was a failure, if I just look at it in ones and zeros and facts, I actually met the first investors who gave me a $25,000 check to start my next company through Tell It in 10. They essentially heard about this project I was working on. They heard about me. They reached out and they basically said, "Hey, Eli, your idea is kind of dumb. We don't really like it, but we like you. And if you're willing to work on the idea with us, then we'll give you a check for 25 grand. I was like, nobody else is throwing money at me. Let's do this thing. And so that's what led me to my next company, which is actually my first successful company. I know you're here to learn about failures. You also probably want to know that there were some wins along the way. So this is where that first win came from. So my first big success, the total game changer in my career that changed my trajectory indefinitely, was called Glider. Well, actually, it was called Superbly, and then we renamed it to Glider, but that's a detail for another day. And for the first 2 years of this company's existence, I paid myself $50,000 a year. I had raised venture capital. We'd raised around $1 million in venture capital. And to me, $50,000 was like, I was rich. I was making so much money, even though it was $50,000, which today I wouldn't be able to live on that. But at the time, I mean, I went from waiting tables at $8.50 an hour to losing $25,000 to making $50,000 in a year. It was just mind-boggling to me. I was so proud of myself and I was so excited about what was to come. Glider was an interesting story because it was both a massive success for me personally and also a pretty glorious failure in the eyes of like the broader startup community. If you talk to software founders and told them that, you know, you started a VC-backed company and you sold it for $3 million cash, most people in the community would be like, oh, so it failed, you know. But to me, I was this 24-year-old guy. I was in credit card debt that I'd used to start the company. I hadn't really made much money ever. And that put $1.2 million cash in my pocket. And so for me, it was life-changing, even though you could call it a failure if you looked at it through the other lens. All right, first, successful company, or maybe a failure, in the books, checkbox. What did I do next? I did the logical thing, the only thing that anybody would do if they were in my shoes, and that would be to go buy a company. I'd never done that before, and I was very curious, and so I did it. I invested $750,000 of my own money from the acquisition, and I bought this e-commerce motorcycle company called KTM Twins. This thing, when I tell you, this was a dumpster fire. I want you to imagine a dumpster on fire, but not like any dumpster, but like a trash dumpster. This was a pile of trash on fire. I hope that my editor can find some sort of B-roll of a dumpster on fire, because that would be very apt. Anyway, I bought this dumpster fire of a business, and I wanted to learn a new industry. I wanted to learn something new. I wanted to turn this business around. And so for the next 4 years, I actually spent all of my time doing that. I turned myself into a factory worker. I actually was in the warehouse packing boxes, shipping things until like I'd get there at 6 a.m. I'd leave at midnight. I'd recruit my friends, my girlfriend, like all of us were in there, boots on the ground, super manual effort to take this thing and try to turn it from a dumpster fire into what I hoped would become a gold mine. And it never did. So what happened? Well, my first year, I made exactly $0, which I know for the investors who are listening to this, they're like, man, Eli, $750,000. You made zero in the first year. That's a really bad investment, man. It's really bad. And you would be right. But that's what it was. First year, made no money. And then for the next 3 years, I think I made something between like $70,000 and $100,000 a year, just depending on the year. It was super messy. The business was still kind of a dumpster fire. And after 3 years of trying, or 4 years of trying, I was just ready to get out from underneath the business. I had totally turned it around as far as like when I bought it, it was doing $20K a month and in top line. And when I sold it, it was doing, I think, 200 and something K a month. So like a meaningful shift in the business, but it still was just not very profitable. It wasn't a business that I wanted to be associated with. And I was super burned out on the industry. So I would call this both, again, this is like Glider. It was both a success and a failure. It was a success in that it gave me a break from tech. I learned some new skills. I actually have a ton of great memories. Like, honestly loved showing up early in the morning and staying until midnight, and the excitement of like physically moving products on the shelves and packing boxes and shipping them to customers and dealing with angry customers. And like e-commerce is a wild, wild beast. And so I have no regrets, even though on the business side of things, I would probably call this one a failure. All right, we have 3 more businesses to go. The next one might be the craziest, and that was a dog food company. Not just a dog food company. You're like, Eli, what? Were you smoking crack? Like, why did you start a dog food company, Eli? And the answer is I started a ketogenic dog food company, which is even crazier. Even crazier. You can Google ketogenic diet, and there'll be all sorts of information about it out there. Anyway, I thought it would be a good idea. This was kind of like an emerging trend in health and fitness at the time. And I thought, like, dogs, like my buddy's dog actually had been diagnosed with cancer, and he was putting it on this ketogenic diet, and he thought it was going to help. And so I was like, that sounds like a great idea. Again, I might have been smoking crack. I have no idea what was going on, but I made an LLC. I put up a website. I created a brand. I ordered a bunch of inventory, and I started making dog food in my tiny apartment kitchen. Okay, so now you're not going to believe what happened next. I actually sold one of these things. I actually shipped to someone this dog food order, and I was super excited about it. And at the same time, I also was realizing this is not a business that I want to run, and I shut it down. So how much money did I make off of this business? Well, I lost about $1,500 just in investment to get the brand created and get the website up and all of that jazz. And then I made maybe $15 from that one order. So whatever 1,500 minus 15 would be the net loss for Waggle Foods. That was the name of the company. All right. There have been a lot of failures along the way so far, and I hope that this is painting a picture that entrepreneurship isn't linear. It's not just like this perfect, steady build. It's kind of messy and complicated and unpredictable and unwieldy. And so hopefully hearing my story so far has painted that picture. Now it's time to have some real success. So my next company was my first services business. It was a marketing agency that I still own today called Mattermade. This business was totally different in that it was wildly profitable essentially from day one, from month 3 of the business. So I've owned this business for 5 years now. And let me walk you through each year how much this business made. In 2019, $307,000. In 2020, $1.43 million. We're trending in the right direction. In 2021, the golden days, the golden year, we all remember 2021, $4.2 million in profit. And that's not cumulative, that was just in 1 year. 2022, the hardest year of my life. Honestly, it was the hardest year of my life. It was a brutal time for me. And in that year, we did 1.75 million, a massive crash down from 4.2. C'est la vie. In 2023, also a very challenging year for me personally. Business was hard. The market had crashed. It was just a tough time. But we managed to pull off $2 million in profit. And then that brings us to today, right now, present day. This business has produced $316,000 in profit year to date and is continuing to build steam as we speak. But that's not the only company. I started another company. I was this crazy cuckoo guy, and I was like, let's have not just one, but two at the same time. That would be a fun idea. I think. It is. It's a fun idea. I'm glad I did it. My other company, my latest company, is called No Boring Design. It is a design agency, and it's in its second year. In its first year, to be honest, I have no idea how much profit it made. I didn't even run the numbers because it was not substantial. But we're in our second year, and I believe we are on track to hit $1 million profit run rate by the end of the year, meaning $100,000 a month, which is just a nice round number, in profit by the end of the year. So it doesn't mean we will have produced $1 million in profit this year, but that we'll be on track by the end of the year so that next year will be at least $1 million in profit. So where are we year to date with that business? We're sitting right at $112,000 year to date profit. So there you have it. Hopefully at this point you're like, Eli, you're one crazy bastard, but man, you've tried a bunch of random shit and I have no idea like why you did some of these things: dog food, motorcycle parts, software, services, marketing, design. Like, what gives, dude? You probably wouldn't trust me to, babysit your kids anymore because you're like, this guy's kind of batshit crazy. But there you have it. Entrepreneurship is kind of batshit crazy. Entrepreneurship is super messy. You never know what's going to hit. You never know what's going to miss. And I think the point of the game is to stay in the game and have fun along the way. So now for the fun part. In the comments, I want to know, what is a failure that you've had? And it could be a funny failure, a fun failure, a super depressing, sad failure. Like, you tell me what it is. I think it's really energizing to share failures because it just makes you realize that all of us are constantly failing and sometimes winning, but people generally only talk about the wins. So let's talk about the failures in the comments. Let me know, and see you next time.